6 enemy fighters swarmed the sky. The general's plane was falling apart. Command told Captain Eva Rostova to escape. Instead, she pointed her F-35's nose at the enemy, ready to prove that one pilot is an entire air force. Captain Eva Valkyrie Rostova, at 30, was an anomaly wrapped in a flight suit. Her ash-blonde hair was always pulled into a tight, regulation bun, a stark contrast to the piercing gray eyes that had seen more high G-turns and weapons deployments than pilots twice her age. With over 3,000 hours logged in the F-35 Lightning II, she was on paper one of the most lethal assets in the United States Air Force. Her call sign, Valkyrie, was earned in a simulation where she single-handedly defeated 8 advanced aggressor aircraft, a feat still whispered about by cadets at the academy. But in the real world, beyond the simulators and after-action reports, she was often just a female pilot. Her male colleagues, many of whom she had consistently outscored, acknowledged her skill with a detached professionalism. But there was always an unspoken asterisk. They saw her precision as carefulness, not lethality. Her tactical creativity as luck, not genius. The high-stakes, high-glory solo missions, the kind that forged legends, were consistently assigned to pilots like Spike, a man whose aggression often bordered on recklessness but was lauded as killer instinct. Eva remembered the sting of being passed over for a critical deep strike mission just months ago, a mission Spike had nearly botched. The quiet condescension was a constant headwind she had to fly against. Her staunchest ally was General Cole Stonewall Mad Doc. A living legend at 59, Mad Doc commanded the entire theater of operations from a position built on decades of unassailable integrity and tactical brilliance. He was a relic from an older Air Force, yet he saw the future with startling clarity. He saw in Eva, talent doesn't have a gender, Colonel. He'd once boomed at a skeptical wing commander. It has a track record, and Captain Rostova's is cleaner than yours. It was Mad Doc who had personally assigned her to this mission, a seemingly routine escort flight. He was conducting a forward command inspection of remote bases along the volatile Khazarian borderlands. Eva was Viper 1, leading a 2-ship formation providing air cover for his C-17 Globemaster III. The intelligence briefing had promised a low-threat environment, but Eva knew better than anyone that in the sky, the only thing you can truly expect is the unexpected. The mission unfolded with textbook precision for the first hour. The C-17, a behemoth of military transport, flew like a steady hand through the thin, cold air, while Eva and her wingman, Viper 2, carved graceful protective arcs around it. The F-35's panoramic cockpit display, a seamless wall of fused data, showed nothing but friendly airspace and the rugged, unforgiving terrain below. It was the calm before a storm she couldn't yet see. At 15:10 hours, the calm shattered. A series of high-pitched, insistent tones ripped through her helmet's audio. Her main display flashed from serene blue to a violent crimson. 6 hostile contacts, previously invisible, materialized on her screen. They weren't just hostile. They were top-of-the-line Su-57s, the enemy's premier stealth fighters, screaming in from a radar blind spot in a perfect pincer formation. They were moving at Mach 1.8, closing the distance with terrifying speed. Aegis Command, this is Viper 1. I have 6 bandits, repeat, 6 bandits, bearing 090, 40 miles, and closing fast. Eva's voice was pure ice, betraying none of the adrenaline that had just flooded her system. The voice from Aegis Command crackled back, laced with an urgency that bordered on panic. Viper 1, we confirm. They must have used terrain masking. Closest support is a tanker group, 20 minutes out. I repeat, 20 minutes. 20 minutes. In air combat, that was an eternity. The Su-57s would be on top of the lumbering C-17 in less than 3. The general was a flying bullseye. Her wingman's voice cut in. Valkyrie, what's the play? We can't hold off 6 of them. Eva's mind was a supercomputer processing angles, threat vectors, and fuel states. The textbook answer was to run, to pull the C-17 into a defensive split and pray they could outrun the wolves. But General Mad Doc wouldn't make it. It was a death sentence. The memory of Spike getting the glory while she got the sidelines flashed in her mind. This was her moment. This was her sky. She made the decision that would define her career or end it. Viper 2, your orders are to escort the package. Get Stonewall out of here. Full afterburner. Do not engage. That's an order. Eva, no. That's suicide. Negative, she replied, her voice dropping to a low, chilling calm as she banked her F-35, turning its nose directly toward the 6 incoming hostiles. It's a target-rich environment. Valkyrie is engaging. Eva was now alone, a single advanced fighter against an entire enemy squadron. The enemy pilots flying their sleek Su-57s saw a lone F-35 turning to face them and likely smell blood. They expected a desperate defensive stand. They were wrong. Eva wasn't planning on defending. She was planning on hunting. Her father, a legendary test pilot, had taught her a core tenet of aerial combat. Never fight the battle they expect. She engaged her F-35's full stealth suite, becoming a ghost in the sky. The enemy's primary advantage was numbers. Hers was information. Her sensors could see them long before they could get a solid lock on her. She wouldn't engage in a chaotic, turning dogfight. She would conduct a surgical execution. Her first move was pure psychological warfare. She selected 2 targets, the lead pilot and his wingman, and fired 2 AMRAAM missiles from maximum range. But she didn't guide them to kill. Instead, she used her F-35's advanced electronic warfare system to make the missiles appear on the enemy's radar, as if they were coming from 2 different directions. Missile launch. 3 o'clock. The enemy leader screamed over their comms. Negative. 9 o'clock, his wingman yelled back. Confusion. That was the weapon. As they broke formation in panic, Eva launched a 3rd missile. This one was for keeps. It slammed into the enemy flight leader's cockpit before he even knew he was the real target. A brilliant orange fireball blossomed against the blue sky. 1 down. The remaining 5 pilots scrambled, their perfect formation dissolving into a panicked swarm. Eva systematically dismantled their command structure. She identified the second-in-command and used her jet's thrust vectoring capabilities to perform a maneuver straight out of science fiction. A controlled, post-stall flip that allowed her to get a firing solution from an impossible angle. Another missile, another kill. 2 down. She downed the 3rd and 4th in a rapid sequence of high-G turns and perfectly timed countermeasures. Her F-35 dancing through their missile salvos like a phantom. But the battle had a cost. During the chaos, a stray missile, fired in a desperate volley, had found its mark not on her, but on the escaping C-17. Mayday, mayday. Viper 1, this is Stonewall. We've lost both port side engines. We're going down. General Maddox's voice, strained but steady, cut through the combat chatter. Eva's heart ceased. She looked at her tactical map. The C-17 was losing altitude fast, heading for a deep, winding canyon in the heart of the enemy-controlled territory below. Her fight wasn't over. It had just moved to a new, more dangerous arena. With 4 enemy fighters reduced to burning wreckage, the last 2 Su-57 pilots lost their nerve. They broke off the engagement and fled, leaving Eva alone in a sky that was suddenly quiet but infinitely more menacing. Her mission had shifted in a heartbeat from air superiority to close air support. She dove her F-35 toward the canyon, her eyes glued to the crippled C-17 as it executed a desperate but controlled crash landing. The massive transport planes skidded along the rocky canyon floor, shedding metal and kicking up a colossal cloud of dust before grinding to a halt. Miraculously, it was in one piece, but they were in the worst possible place. This canyon was a known enemy staging area. Eva's sensors immediately lit up with ground contacts converging on the crash site. Trucks, technicals, dozens of enemy soldiers. Stonewall, this is Valkyrie. Hostile ground forces are inbound on your position. I'll provide cover. What followed was a masterclass in air-to-ground assault. Eva used her F-35's 25mm cannon with surgical precision. She didn't strafe indiscriminately. She targeted engine blocks on vehicles and suppressed heavy weapon positions, creating a perimeter of fire around the downed aircraft. The sound of her cannon echoed through the canyon like the wrath of God. For a few precious minutes, it worked. The initial wave of attackers was thrown into disarray, but the enemy was numerous and determined. They swarmed the C-17 from all sides. Eva watched on her targeting pod display, a silent, helpless observer from 10,000 feet above. She saw the firefight, the muzzle flashes from the general's security team, and then the moment that made her blood run cold. The cargo ramp of the C-17 lowered, and a group of soldiers emerged, escorting General Maddock, his hands bound. They had captured him. Aegis Command, this is Viper 1. Stonewall has been captured. I repeat, the general is captured. Her voice was a strained whisper. The protocol was clear. Report, return to base, and let the special forces handle it. A rescue mission would take hours, if not days, to plan and execute. By then, Maddock would be gone, spirited away to an enemy black site, his knowledge a catastrophic loss to national security. Eva watched the enemy convoy begin to move, taking one of America's most vital military leaders away. She looked at her fuel gauge, her remaining ammunition, and a vast, hostile territory below. Standard procedure be damned. She wasn't leaving him behind. Viper 2, RTB. Report the situation, she transmitted, her voice now hard as diamond. I'm going after him. Valkyrie, what are you doing? You can't. Watch me. She cut him off. She had just broken every rule in the book. And she was just getting started. What Eva Rostova did next was not in any Air Force manual. It was an act of audacious, calculated insanity. Her F-35 was no longer just a fighter jet. It was her reconnaissance platform, her sniper rifle, and her guardian angel, all in one. First, she became a ghost again, trailing the enemy convoy from high above, using her advanced sensors to map their route through the treacherous mountain passes. They were heading for a fortified compound, a place from which no one returned. She had less than an hour. Phase 1 was psychological. She dove her jet into the canyon, pulling up just feet above the convoy and rocketing past at supersonic speed. The resulting sonic boom was deafening, a physical blow that shattered windows on the trucks and sent soldiers diving for cover, convinced they were being shelled by artillery. In the ensuing chaos, she made a second pass, this time with her cannon. With inhuman precision, she fired short, controlled bursts, not at the soldiers, but at the engine blocks of the lead and rear vehicles. The convoy was crippled, trapped on a narrow mountain road. Now came the impossible part. A conventional rescue was out of the question. She was the rescue team. Scouring the terrain with her sensors, she found what she was looking for. A straight, relatively flat stretch of abandoned asphalt road about a mile ahead of the trapped convoy. It was barely 4,000 feet long, less than half the recommended landing distance for an F-35. Landing there was a suicidal maneuver that flight instructors used as an example of what not to do. Eva didn't hesitate. She circled once, lowered her landing gear, and brought the world's most advanced fighter jet down onto a crumbling strip of pavement. The landing was brutal. The tires screamed in protest, and the landing gear groaned under the stress, but she held it. The jet shuddered to a stop with mere feet to spare before a sheer drop. She kept the engine running, the canopy open. Armed with only her sidearm and a survival knife, she sprinted down the road toward the stalled convoy. The enemy soldiers were still in disarray, trying to figure out where the attack had come from. They never imagined it would come from a lone pilot on foot. Surprise was her only weapon. She neutralized the two guards holding the general with swift, silent efficiency, put her arm around Maddock, and said, "Let's go for a walk, sir." The general, though battered, looked at her not with surprise, but with a glimmer of fierce pride. They made it back to the F-35 just as the enemy realized what was happening. Gunfire erupted behind them. Eva shoved the general into the small maintenance bay behind the cockpit, a space never meant for a passenger, strapped him in as best she could, and slammed the canopy shut. The takeoff was even more harrowing than the landing. With the added weight and a dangerously short runway, she pushed the F-35's engine to its absolute limit. The jet roared down the road, lifting off just as the asphalt crumbled into the canyon below. They were airborne. The flight back was a tense, grueling ordeal. Enemy forces, now fully alerted, threw everything they had at her. Eva had to evade surface-to-air missiles and outmaneuver scrambled enemy fighters, all while flying a damaged, overloaded aircraft with a general rattling around in the maintenance bay. It was a masterpiece of defensive flying, a final defiant act in a day defined by them. When her F-35 finally touched down at the main airbase 3 hours later, its tires kissing the familiar runway, a stunned silence fell over the entire facility. Ground crews stopped in their tracks. As she taxied to a halt and shut down the engines, the silence was broken by the roar of applause. General Maddox was the first one to the cockpit as the canopy hissed open. His face was bruised and exhausted, but his eyes shone with a profound respect Eva had never seen from anyone of his rank. "Captain," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "they call me Stonewall. But you are the rock that the storm broke against today." The base commander, Colonel Martinez, approached, his expression a mixture of awe and utter disbelief. "Rostova, I've been in this business for 30 years. I've never seen anything like it. 5 confirmed kills, a ground extraction, with a fighter jet? You didn't just break the rules. You rewrote the entire damn book." Eva pulled off her helmet, her ash blonde hair falling loose around her sweat-streaked face. "Sir, General Maddox would have done the same for any of us. I was just in the right place at the right time." Maddox shook his head firmly. "No, Captain, you were the right pilot. You faced an impossible situation and you didn't just solve it, you dominated it." The after-action report became a classified legend, a case study in tactical genius taught only to the most elite pilots. 6 months later, Major Eva Hayes, now commanding the Air Force's premier aggressor squadron, never again had to wonder if she belonged. She had proven that the most advanced weapon in the sky isn't the aircraft. It's the will of the pilot inside it. Have you ever faced a moment where you were told something was impossible? Eva's story is a powerful reminder that limitations are often just a failure of imagination. The enemy pilots that day expected a fight they had trained for. They got a battle they couldn't even comprehend, waged by a pilot who refused to lose. If you believe that true greatness is found by shattering expectations, share this story. And in the comments below, pay your respects to the quiet professionals who prove, time and again, that the impossible is just something that hasn't been done yet. Comment respect and subscribe for more incredible stories. Thanks for watching.